The lights in the studio were blinding, but the tension was even brighter. The network had promoted the interview as a can't-miss event, but no one, least of all the producers, could have predicted just how quickly the script would be torn to shreds. Donald Trump, former president and master of the media spectacle, was seated across from Samuel L. Jackson, the legendary actor known for his unfiltered honesty and refusal to play by anyone's rules. The stage was set for a conversation about movies, politics, and legacy. What unfolded was something else entirely. Trump tried to seize control from the start. "Samuel, I hear your new movie is breaking records. Tremendous business. You must be very proud," he said, flashing a practiced smile. The audience, a mix of fans and political junkies, waited for Jackson's trademark wit. But Jackson didn't smile. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on Trump, and the mood in the room shifted instantly. "We're not here to talk about movies, Donald," Jackson said, his voice calm but carrying an edge that cut through the studio's artificial warmth. The host, caught off guard, glanced at the teleprompter, then at the control room. This wasn't in the rundown. Trump's smile faltered for a split second before he forced it back. "Well, I thought this was about your film," he replied. His tone sharpening, Jackson reached into his jacket and placed his phone on the table, screen facing up. The camera zoomed in, the audience holding its breath. "Do you remember a golf game we played back in 2016? Jackson asked. "It was you, me, and two others at your club in New Jersey?" Trump's eyes narrowed. "I play golf with a lot of people. I have many friends in Hollywood, many black friends who support me." The line was familiar, but Jackson didn't blink. "Answer the question, Donald. Do you remember that game?" The room went silent. Trump shifted in his chair. "I remember playing golf at my club. It's a great course, one of the best." Jackson didn't let up. "On the seventh hole, you told a joke? Do you want me to repeat it?" Trump's color faded. He opened his mouth, then stopped. "I tell a lot of jokes. People love my humor. Everyone says I'm very funny." Jackson shook his head. "That joke wasn't funny. It was about black people. You joked that we can't swim. You even made a drowning gesture." A gasp rippled through the audience. Trump's defenses shot up. "That's completely false. I never said that. This is another lie from Hollywood elites trying to make me look bad. I've been great for the black community, better than any president ever." Jackson tapped his phone. "I recorded the entire conversation. Do you want me to play it for everyone here?" Trump's jaw clenched. "You can't do that. That's illegal." "It was a private conversation." Jackson remained calm. "New Jersey is a one-party consent state. I'm allowed to record it, and I did." The tension was overwhelming. The host looked to the producers, unsure whether to cut to commercial. Jackson continued, "But that's not even why I'm here. The golf game and the joke are just part of it. I want to talk about the bills you sent me." Trump looked confused. "Bills? What bills?" Jackson pulled out several papers, unfolding them for the camera. "After that golf game, you sent me a bill for a club membership. $25,000 a year. You said I had such a great time that I should join." Trump shrugged. "My clubs have fees. They're exclusive. People want in." Jackson nodded. "Here's the issue. That same month, you sent the exact same membership offer to 12 other black celebrities. Every one of us got the same bill and the same speech." Trump tried to interrupt, but Jackson raised his voice. "Not one white person who played with you that month received a membership bill. Not a single one." "I called them," the audience murmured. Trump's face turned red. "That's not true. I send offers to everyone, all races." Jackson placed one final document on the table. "This is an internal memo from your club manager. It clearly lists black guests who were specifically targeted for membership solicitations. The memo says, these individuals represent target demographics for brand visibility." Trump's composure cracked. "Where did you get that?" "That's stolen property. You can't just steal documents from private businesses." Jackson replied, "A former employee gave it to me. Someone who was disgusted by what they saw working for you." Trump stood up. This is a setup. You're ambushing me on television with fake documents and illegal recordings. Jackson remained seated, calm. Sit down, Donald. Trump bristled. I don't have to sit here and listen to this. I'm the former president of the United States. I've been treated worse than any president in history. Jackson didn't flinch. You keep saying that. Let's talk about that claim. You think you've been treated worse than presidents who were actually assassinated? Worse than presidents who faced real threats to their life? Trump pointed at Jackson. You don't understand what I've been through. The witch hunts, the hoaxes, the fake news constantly attacking me. Jackson's voice was steady. You're upset that people finally started holding you accountable. That's not persecution, Donald. That's consequences. The audience erupted in applause. Trump looked at them, genuinely shocked. These people are paid to be here, he muttered, but the microphone picked it up clearly. No, Donald. These are regular people who paid to see a show. They're reacting to what they're witnessing. Trump sat back down, but his body language had completely changed. He was defensive now. Jackson didn't let the moment slip away. He pulled out another piece of paper, holding it up for the cameras. You love to claim that the black community supports you. You say it constantly. Let's look at actual numbers. Trump jumped in. I got more black votes than any Republican in decades. The polls show it? Jackson's tone was even. Which polls, Donald? Because every legitimate poll shows your support in the black community is in the single digits. But you keep lying about it. Trump's voice rose. Those polls are fake. Just like the fake news? I talk to black people all the time who love me. They come up to me in the streets with tears in their eyes, saying, "Thank you, Mr. President." Jackson shook his head. No, they don't. That's another lie. You always say people come up to you with tears in their eyes. It's like a script you follow. It happens all the time. Big tough guys, construction workers, they come up to me crying because of what I did for the country. The audience laughed, but it wasn't kind laughter. It was the sound of people recognizing a pattern, seeing through something they'd heard too many times. Jackson pressed on. Here's what really happens. You surround yourself with people who tell you what you want to hear. You fire anyone who disagrees with you. Then you convince yourself that everyone loves you because that's all you ever hear from your bubble. Trump's voice was sharp. I had the most diverse administration in history. I did more for HBCUs than any president. I had black people in my cabinet. Jackson replied, You had Ben Carson? That's one person. And he spent most of his time trying to cut housing programs that help black families. The host tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground, but Jackson wasn't finished. Let's talk about privilege, Donald. Trump tensed at the word. I don't have privilege. I worked hard for everything I got. I built my business from nothing. Jackson actually laughed. From nothing? Donald, your father gave you millions of dollars multiple times. He bailed you out when your casinos failed. He co-signed your loans. The New York Times documented all of this. Trump's face hardened. That's fake news. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. I turned it into billions. Jackson shook his head. First of all, it wasn't $1 million. It was much more. Second, you got access to his business connections, his real estate empire, his reputation. That's not starting from nothing. Trump crossed his arms. So what? Lots of people inherit money. It doesn't guarantee success. Jackson nodded. You're right. But inheritance gives you something most people never have: the freedom to fail without real consequences. When your businesses went bankrupt, your life didn't collapse. You simply moved on to the next deal. Ordinary people don't get that luxury. The host finally jumped in. This is a very intense confrontation we're watching tonight. Jackson didn't acknowledge him. His attention stayed locked on Trump. When you talk about how hard you worked, you erase the reality of people who truly started with nothing. People without a safety net. People who faced discrimination at every step of their lives. Trump immediately pushed back. I faced discrimination too. The Democrats, the media, they've attacked me since day one. Jackson responded firmly. That's not discrimination, Donald. That's accountability. There's a difference. Trump turned to the audience, trying to regain control. You know what this is really about? Samuel's angry because I wouldn't cast him in my new project. He's jealous of my success in entertainment. The audience didn't laugh or clap. They stayed quiet, waiting. Jackson didn't react emotionally. I don't want anything from you. I already have a successful career. I've worked with great directors and made films I'm proud of. I don't need your projects or your approval. Trump frowned. Then why are you here? Why ambush me on television if you don't want something? Jackson answered evenly. Because someone needs to say these things to your face on camera where you can't hide behind tweets or lawyers. Trump leaned back in his chair. I don't hide from anyone. I've never hidden from anything in my life. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Really? How many depositions have you tried to avoid? How many subpoenas have you fought? How many times have you claimed executive privilege over things that had nothing to do with executive duties? Trump waved it off. That's legal strategy. Smart people do that. You wouldn't understand. Jackson smiled for the first time. There it is. The condescension. When you can't defend your behavior, you attack people's intelligence. Jackson returned to the membership bills. Because there's more to this story. I actually paid the fee. I thought maybe I misunderstood your intentions. So I wrote a check for $25,000. Trump looked uneasy. So you joined the club. What's the issue? Jackson replied, the issue is that I was never made a member. You cashed the check, but 3 months later, when I tried to book a tea time, they told me I wasn't in the system. Trump tried to explain it away. That sounds like an administrative mistake. That happens sometimes. Jackson shook his head. It wasn't a mistake. I called your club manager directly. He told me the membership program I paid into didn't actually exist. It was something you created specifically to collect money from people you met casually. The audience gasped. Trump's lawyer in the front row looked deeply uncomfortable. That's ridiculous. All my clubs have legitimate membership programs. Jackson raised another document. This is a letter from the New Jersey Attorney General's office. They investigated after I filed a complaint. They found that you collected more than $300,000 through fake membership solicitations. You were forced to refund the money and pay a fine. Trump muttered, I don't remember that, but his voice lacked confidence. Jackson replied, Of course you don't. Admitting it would mean admitting you ran a scam. It's easier to pretend it never happened. Jackson's voice grew stronger as he pressed the point. This is your pattern, Donald. You make promises. You take people's money. When they realize you didn't deliver, you deny it or blame someone else. Trump tried to interrupt, but Jackson continued, Trump University followed the same playbook. You promised people insider real estate knowledge, took their money, delivered nothing meaningful, and then dragged out the lawsuits for years. Trump objected quickly. I settled that case without admitting wrongdoing. That's completely different. Jackson answered directly. You paid $25 million to people you scammed. You can frame it however you want, but the facts don't change. That's exactly what happened. The host tried to guide the show toward a commercial break, but Jackson shook his head. We're not finished yet. Trump glanced at his watch. Actually, I think we are. I have other obligations. Jackson didn't move. Sit down, Donald. You came on this show for attention? Well, this is what real publicity looks like. He continued, You said earlier that you've been treated worse than any president in American history. Let's really examine that statement. Trump straightened his posture, clearly thinking this was a moment he could dominate. Absolutely. The investigations, the impeachments, the nonstop media attacks. No president has ever gone through what I did. Jackson responded calmly. Abraham Lincoln was assassinated while attending a play. John F. Kennedy was shot in Dallas. Ronald Reagan survived an assassination attempt. And you're saying negative press coverage is worse than that? Trump waved it off. Those were different times. What I faced was a coordinated effort to undermine my presidency from day one. Jackson leaned forward. No, Donald. What you faced was journalism. You faced investigations into your own actions. You faced consequences for documented behavior. That's not persecution. Trump snapped. The Russia hoax was persecution. The fake impeachments were persecution. The raid on my home was persecution. Jackson responded without raising his voice. The Russia investigation documented multiple contacts between your campaign and Russian officials. You were impeached twice by Congress through constitutional procedures, and the search of your property was approved by a federal judge after you refused to return classified documents. None of that qualifies as persecution. Trump's face turned bright red. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just repeating fake news. Jackson answered directly. I'm repeating what's in official records and sworn testimony. Here's what actually bothers you, Donald. You believed you could win over the black community with photo ops and empty promises. You assumed we'd ignore your history, your statements, and your real policies. Trump quickly responded, I passed prison reform. I funded HBCUs. I created opportunity zones. Jackson shook his head. You signed bills that were already written. You took credit for other people's work. And at the same time, you supported policies that harm the very communities you claim to care about. Trump pointed toward the audience. There are black people here who support me. I can see them. Jackson replied evenly. There may be a few. There are always a few people who ignore evidence, but they don't represent the majority of our community. Most people see through this clearly. Trump fired back. That's because you've been brainwashed by Democrats. They've controlled the black vote for decades with promises they never keep. Jackson shook his head again. This isn't about Democrats or Republicans. This is about you, your words, your actions, your behavior. He paused, letting the silence build. You want to know the real issue? You've never faced real consequences in your life. Trump tried to interrupt, but Jackson raised his hand. Every time you failed, someone rescued you. Every time you broke rules, you hired lawyers to fight it. Every time people were harmed, you used money and influence to make the problem disappear. That's not true, Trump argued. I've faced nonstop investigations. Jackson answered firmly, investigations are not consequences. Accountability is consequences, and you spent your entire life avoiding accountability. The studio was completely silent. This no longer felt like a TV segment. It felt like a moment of reckoning. When regular people lie, they lose their jobs, Jackson continued. When they cheat, they face charges. When they harm others, they pay the price. But you just move on, denying, rewriting history, blaming everyone else. Trump stood up again. I'm done, he said angrily. This is a hit job. You set me up to embarrass me on television. Jackson looked at him steadily. I didn't make you look bad, Donald. I asked questions and presented evidence. You did the rest yourself by lying and deflecting. Trump stood frozen. For once, there was no quick comeback. No distraction. No tweet to hide behind. He couldn't dismiss it as fake news and simply walk away. The cameras were still rolling. The audience was watching every move. And Samuel L. Jackson was still staring straight at him. Waiting for an honest response, Trump started to speak, then stopped. His mouth opened and closed as if he was searching for words that just wouldn't come. The silence dragged on. It felt like minutes, though it was probably only half a minute. Still, it was the longest pause anyone had ever seen Trump take in a public setting. Finally, Jackson broke the silence. This is what happens when you can't control the narrative. This is what happens when someone doesn't let you deflect or change the subject. You're forced to face the truth. Trump slowly sat back down. His hands were slightly shaking now. What do you want from me? He asked. Jackson answered without hesitation. I want you to stop lying. I want you to admit that you've hurt people. I want you to acknowledge that actions have consequences. Trump shook his head. I can't do that. If I admit anything, it'll be used against me in court. Jackson nodded calmly. And there it is. Even now, after everything, you're only thinking about legal exposure. Not about the people you hurt, not about fixing anything, just protecting yourself. The interview ended right there. Trump walked off the set without saying another word. His handlers rushed in immediately, already preparing statements to control the damage. But it was too late. The footage was already spreading. Within minutes, clips were trending across social media platforms. News networks picked up the story almost instantly. Political commentators and analysts began publishing reactions to what they had just witnessed. This wasn't just another celebrity clash. It felt like a moment with real consequences.